Hello, everybody. I am Jarrett Ross, the GeneaVlogger, and welcome to another GeneaVlogger live stream. On today's video, we're going to be talking about DNA tests. I see I'm all glitchy looking. I always need to change the lighting whenever I do this. Otherwise, I look a little glitchy. I think that's what's better. More light or less light? I think I like that better. So yeah, welcome everybody. I guess while I kind of try to unglitch myself a bit or overly glitch. Oh no, I'm gone. Hey. Whoops, I accidentally slid that a little too far. I can't tell if that's better or not. I think that is. We'll go with that. That's good enough. All right. Hello, everybody. So we'll talk DNA test today, but I thought we would do this in an interesting way. I am already writing a script for the best DNA tests to take 2025 because I figured that's going to be, a really popular video. And especially with a lot of stuff having happened since the last time I made a best DNA test video. So I started to kind of write out the script and just figuring out, what did I want to include in terms of the DNA tests and what did I want to use to rank it. So in the past, I don't think I ever used any sort of specific ranking. I think I just kind of explained, here are my pros and cons for each test. And based on that, this is my opinion. I know that Family History Fanatics, Andy Lee, came up with some very fancy sort of way to figure it out. He had a whole bunch of stuff. And I actually took a look at it right before I started writing this script, just to be like, how did he do that? But it was yeah, that's a bit more than I think how I want to handle it, especially because part of what he did, which I thought was interesting, was he looked at, out of the top 100 matches, I think how many were quality matches. Then he had a way that he defined that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's something that, while it can be a useful measurement, I know that depending on where people are in terms of or people's ancestry and how many matches you have can vary a lot. And so, I feel that could be a good metric if I do the test, but then it really sways it, makes, a bias towards people with Jewish ancestry because that's what I have. So, all right. Basically, I've started the script. Kind of. I kind of took some stuff out before I started the the stream. And so here we go. So here's what I've written out so far. And so you can kind of get an idea of where I'm coming from. And I figure what we'll do as we do the stream today is we'll talk about a lot of this stuff. And I'll have you all get to put your input in what you think I should include or maybe shouldn't include or whatnot. So while I let this kind of sink in with all of you, I'll go through and do my hellos for the day. And I think I'm going to adjust myself there. Yeah, I think that's better. Well, actually, we'll just do this. That should make it nice and legible for everybody to read. All right. So I'll let that sink in and I'll do all the hellos. So Julia Joyce, hello. Good to have you as always, beating out Anna again, but Anna coming in second with the coming in from Western New York. Only two DNA kits I don't recognize are Gene in the bottom right, which you're talking about the thumbnail, and that one on the bottom right is Genera, which is a Brazilian-based DNA test. I've taken part in all the others. William Allen, hello from Australia. Thank you for joining, William. I know, especially with how, I guess I think it's got to be really early morning there, if I remember correctly. I always think it's 12 hours, but I think it was more of a difference because it's at 4:09 p.m. where I am on the East Coast of the U.S. James Burton, hi from London. Hello, James. Thank you for joining. I've tested an Ancestry, MyHeritage, 23andMe, and uploaded a living DNA, FTDNA for autosomal DNA. I've tested FTDNA for Big Y and mitoDNA too. And I've uploaded a GEDmatch. Very cool. Very cool. And Julia tested an Ancestry, living DNA, 23andMe, and then uploaded to MyHeritage, FTDNA, and GEDmatch. And oops, I meant I had friends tested at the middle bottom one. Okay, I think was that the 23 Mafong that I had for the middle bottom one. Can't remember exactly. I don't have the thumbnail right in front of me, but yeah. James Burton still figuring out how best to use the results of my research, and that's the hardest part. How to figure, how to figure out is actually how to utilize it, because no matter how many uh, you know, presentations you've seen or how many times you've done genetic genealogy, in different cases. Like I've worked so many cases. I feel like all the time I'm handed a new case where it's like it just everything feels slightly different. And it all falls in line close enough that you can, get a hold of it. But for some people, it's like the results that they get, especially if it's minimal DNA matches and stuff, or coming from a population with, limited records or endogamy or, whatever is going on. It there's always something different. And so, sometimes watching a ton of, stuff about, how to do genetic genealogy can be helpful, but it just doesn't hit it the thing that might be causing difficulty with you. Because every single one's different, having done so many of these. Now, obviously, when you do people that are coming from the similar populations, you see a lot of those major similarities. But even then, I feel like there's enough difference that it makes it, yeah. So, but best of luck. Hopefully, my content's helpful for you in that regard to figure out how to do that. Yeah, highly recommend uploading to GEDmatch. I do as well. I think GEDmatch is a great resource. It has some of the most advanced tools for looking at your DNA. For one, it's the only place you can go to get one-to-one comparisons. Basically, you comparing yourself to another DNA match, where you get to see the full scale of how you're matching. So not just, you are matching and this is how much DNA. It shows here's where you're matching on the chromosomes, and are you matching half identically or full identically? Because remember, you have pairs of chromosomes. So half identical means you only match on one part of the pair of the chromosome. Full identical, you're matching on both parts. And that can be very helpful, especially if you're doing advanced sort of stuff like visual phasing. So yeah. Weeping Scorpion, Goedenavond, Jarrett. Got Kveld. Got cold? It's cold here. It's actually, I keep looking out the window trying to see if it's snowing, because it's supposed to start snowing any moment. We're actually supposed to get a nasty winter mix, so I'm not looking forward to it, but hopefully it's not too bad. But good to have you. Thanks for coming in. Adam Biros coming in from England. Thank you, Adam. Good to have you. And Stephen Millsap. Good day, friend. Steve from North Dakota. Thank you for joining as always, Stephen. We've got Bear Var. Hi from Zurich. Really liked your video reaction to Dr. Mike. I was really disappointed, and his response to your video was even worse. Yeah, I think a lot of people in the genealogy community who are Dr. Mike fans, which, I am. I like a lot of his videos. It was a video that was kind of like, it kind of put into that saying, what is it? You trust in what people talk about until they talk about what you know, or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote, but it definitely kind of felt like that, where it's like, not that I distrust him in a sense, but it certainly makes me kind of like take a second look at everything he says, because seeing how wrong he got some stuff in there, and then his response like trying to back up things that were just wrong, like not even like arguable stuff. Like he was trying to, one of the first response he had was like posting a Good Morning America article, which was titled 23andMe helps with, law enforcement case, as his backup of, well, 23andMe helps them, when it's like, it's not that hard to look and find a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I was really disappointed with a good amount of that stuff. So if anyone hasn't seen that video, go over to my reaction channel after this stream and go check it out. But thank you for joining for today, Bearvar. DJ's Variety Channel, hello. Thank you for joining, DJ. And Simply Smarter Shopping, hello. TJ here from California. Well, thank you for joining, TJ. Hopefully you're doing all right. I don't know where you are in California, but I guess a good point to say, thinking about, all the people in Southern California and the areas around LA with all the fires going on. A fire, actually, I just found out like not long ago, started up in Granada Hills, which is actually, for a lot of people that don't know, I was born in Tarzana, California, which is in the valley, and my family lived in Northridge, and my mom actually owned a toy store in Granada Hills. I think it was off of Zelza Avenue. Or is it Boulevard? I can't remember. But either way, there's like a fire that just started happening in Granada Hills over the past few hours. And so that was like, oh, wow, that's, hitting really close to home. Granted, a lot of the areas that fires are, I'm very familiar with, having, gone to LA a lot over the years. But yeah, thinking of all the people in California, hoping, the best for those that are affected, and hopefully fewer people, there's not going to be too many more people who are affected. So hopefully they can get it under control. Nick Brokema, Goedenavond Vinachronachen. Goedenavond, hoe gaat het? Hope you've been well. Good to have you. I feel like, how far back am I? I just realized, looking at that Nick messaged me 10 minutes ago, so I don't want to get too far behind. So I'm going to jump past some of the second comments from a few people. Hola, Dan Edwards. Hola, ¿cómo está? Louis Playford. Hello from Georgia, USA. Hello, Louis. Antonio Delache. Hello. Thank you for joining, Antonio. Karma. Oops, late. Hi from Nebraska. You're not too late. Your message was 4:10, so you're only 10 minutes late. I still haven't even gotten through the hellos, although I guess I did have a little bit of a long intro, which I guess I'll redo once I go through the hellos, but hopefully the thing on screen will help give an idea. Said 8tar, hello from Chicago. I've only tested at FTDNA. Okay. Let's see. Mirage Shalomger from Australia, 7 a.m. Saturday here. Is that Western Australia or Eastern Australia? Although I guess 7 a.m. If I remember correctly, 15 hours sounds about right for Eastern. So yeah, I guess, I don't know. Let me know. Are you which side are you on? Okay. S1 Ege Kodiem. Hey from Norway. Hello. I'm sure I did not pronounce this your username in any way that you were thinking. Sandy Ross. Hello from North Carolina. Hi, Mom. Good to have you. Cynthia Hazelton, who is Dr. Mike? Dr. Mike is a doctor YouTuber. He makes content about, medical stuff. And he's been around for a long time. He's done a lot of different content. Like, he did a lot of reaction content. He has a podcast. And he's lately, over the past year, he's gotten into much more like, I don't want to say fear-mongering stuff, but kind of much more hit piece sort of like stuff. Kind of like the DNA test video. Like, I think the latest video he had was like, things I would never do as a doctor. And then that was interesting, but especially because it was like a lot of doctors talking about stuff. But yeah, I think he makes good content for the most part. Granted, from now on, I'll definitely have kind of a different look at things, having seen how things were, done for that one video. But yeah. All right. So let's see. Seeing if there's any other hellos. Stig. Hi, everybody from Oslo, Norway. Hello. Simply Smart Shopping. I'm in the desert. No fires here. Well, good to hear. Hopefully you stay safe. All right. So I think I got everybody's hellos. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone's hellos. I know I missed a lot of comments and stuff because I figured we should get into this. I'm not going to be able to stream super long today. Well, I don't know. We'll see. All right. So for those who missed the beginning, basically the plan today is that we're going to talk about what companies are the best DNA tests, but we're going to do this in a way by actually going through how I'm going to be ranking them for my upcoming video. And so you all will be able to help me. So you'll get to have a say in how some of the ranking happens, because I don't even know who I'm going to rank best at this point, because I figured I should do some sort of a scale. So just to start, the way that I'm thinking of the tests to choose, are ones where you can actually order a DNA test and they include DNA matching. So that would mean that I'm not going to rank GED match as part of this. because you can't order a DNA test through them. It means I'm not going to rank Nebula whole genome sequence test through this because they don't have DNA matching. They do have admixtures, but as we all largely know, and maybe not everyone here, but the core of my audience knows, admixtures really aren't that helpful. They're just a fun little thing. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in terms of the DNA test I'm choosing. Now, I know on the thumbnail I had some like international tests. You know, we had WeGene, 23 Mafong, Genera, and then there's a lot of others as well. I don't have any experience with those, so I think one other thing I don't know if I'm going to include anything where I don't have any experience with it. Granted, a lot of people don't have experience with those, and it's ones where, you know, I don't know, maybe one day I will actually like do a test through them, see if I can do that. It does worry me doing the Asian-based DNA tests, especially, I forgot what, I think one of them's based in Japan and one of them's based in China. But it was just, I was just like, I don't know. It just, anything dealing with China and stuff nowadays is kind of like, I don't know if I want to do anything like that. Granted, technically, when I tested through Nebula whole genome sequencing, I think their lab is based in China. But supposedly they do that, you know, anonymizing your DNA sort of thing. But anyway, so that's basically what I'm thinking. And I guess I should say, yeah, let's do this. Order DNA test, include DNA matching, and I have experience with it. All right, so now this is really where I think it'll be interesting to hear from what you all think. And that's in terms of what metrics to rate it by. And the thing that I was trying to think of was, you know, do I want to do it on what type of a scale? I was talking before about the way Family History Fanatics did it, and Andy Lee had his whole kind of, you know, way of doing it. And that was kind of a lot more like, you know, advanced. And I don't know if I want to make it that complicated necessarily. And some of the metrics that they were looking into, I didn't think necessarily were the best things to measure by. So the thing I mentioned before was that one of the things they measured was like the quality of matches. And that was, I think, based on like, you know, out of the top 100 matches on each DNA test, how many were a certain quality. Like, I think they had to have a tree attached to it that had so much with it. And basically, I think the idea was looking at their database, how many matches of yours have information where you can utilize them to figure out the genetic genealogy. Because if you don't know, you know, if you have a DNA match, but you don't know their name, you don't have a family tree, you don't have any stuff like that, that's going to make it really difficult to figure out who they are. Near impossible a lot of the time. So basically, I didn't think that was necessarily something to include. Let's see. Oh, Daniel Jack Ryan, hello. Thanks for joining. DJ's Friday. Here's a fun challenge. Test on the most random DNA test and try to find something helpful from it, or maybe take a cat or dog DNA test and see what happens. I don't know about the latter one. Test on the most random DNA test and try to find. I don't know what you mean by random DNA test necessarily, though. I mean, I guess like a third-party one. I don't know. And then this is a question that kind of goes to part of that. You know, why I don't think what Family History Fanatics was doing in terms of, you know, the measuring the top 25 out of 100 is there one of those better for Native American heritage. And that kind of gets to the point of that when you look at the DNA match list for different people from different populations, what the quality of it is going to vary. Now, I don't know if there's any that are specifically better for Native American heritage, especially since a lot of Native American tribes are very notorious for being anti-DNA testing. And basically, you know, just like not wanting to be a part of any of that. And so like, I know that there's like kind of a lot of unknowns, a lot of unknown going on just because of a lack of DNA studies and DNA tests available from people with Native American heritage. And then Antonio, Dante Labs is based in Italy. If you want to do whole genome sequencing, they should be safer. Interesting. Yeah, I will say between both Dante Labs and Nebula, I've heard so many negative things. And unfortunately with Dante Labs, I don't know how true it is. But I've seen a lot of people post stuff saying basically that, they have a major difficulty in getting the results back in a decent amount of time. And that, yeah, I don't know how true it is. I obviously tested with Nebula, which when I did it, it went through pretty well. So the rating guide that I was basically thinking of doing, you can see here, and I had stuff that I kind of took out and put back in and took, and changed it up. The first thing is size of database. And originally I was going to do 1 point for every million of people in their database, 1 million users. But then that became a big issue because Ancestry has 25 million people in their database. But then like Family Tree DNA, I don't remember exactly what it was. They only had like 1 million. And it was like, I honestly don't think that, that's 24 points worth of like, being ahead by Ancestry, even though having a much larger database is a big thing with it. I just feel like the size of the database isn't like, while it does play a role in things, it's not the most important thing, especially in that different databases have some better population groups represented. The one that I think I talk about most is with MyHeritage. They have a lot of Eastern European and South American testers, whereas with a lot of the other DNA tests, they have barely any. And that's just because it was easier to order DNA tests from MyHeritage for people that lived in those areas. So people in like Ukraine and what people that were in Russia. But obviously for those who didn't hear about it, MyHeritage is going to be cutting off service for anyone who's from Russia, or not from Russia, but living in Russia. I don't remember the exact thing, but basically they put out a press release saying, if you live in Russia and you use MyHeritage, get all of your information and save it because we're deleting it off of our website for good. So, unfortunately, that's the stuff that comes along with, when wars are going on. But so for size of database, the way that I thought I'd do it is I'd do it on a 10-point scale. And so basically I would take the largest DNA database, which is Ancestry, and that has 25 million. And so 25 million equals 10 points. So basically I would just kind of give points for everything divided by 10, I guess, or not divided by 10, but like on that scale. So I don't remember what the next one up is, but the next one up is like 23andMe. And I want to say they have like over 10 million. I don't remember how many, but they have a lot. So they probably end up getting like 5 points or something. And then Family Tree DNA and, MyHeritage, they're both somewhere in the low, couple of million. So they'll probably end up getting maybe a point or two or something. And then Living DNA will probably get like a half a point. So, I think I felt like that was good. So that's one that I kind of already know where that's going to land. But then this is the next thing I thought was really important, collaborative capabilities. And so I gave this 25 points. And I don't know exactly how I'll split it up. I just kind of, when I was first writing this out, I was basically just like, okay, what's something I think is important and how important do I think it is to things? So I figured 25 points, that is very important because collaborative capabilities just mean how easy does that website make it for you to be able to collaborate with other people? And the winners on that are Ancestry by a mile, because Ancestry makes it extremely easy to collaborate, both on the DNA side and on the family tree side. Basically, if you've done a DNA test on Ancestry, you can invite like 20 different people to be able to go in and look at your DNA matches and help organize them and do all this different stuff. You can also get people, set them as a manager of your kit. So like when I have a lot of people that hire me, I'll have them set me as the manager for their DNA. And then I will download the DNA to upload it to other websites for them and basically do a lot of that work to get them in the different databases. So that's really important. But then you have other sites like 23andMe, which honestly, I think 23andMe will probably end up getting 0 points on this because they have no collaborative capabilities with it. Basically, with 23andMe, you just have to give the person your password and login address because there's no other way to get in there. Family tree DNA is the same. Although Family Tree DNA will probably get points in the sense that their projects, which are geared more towards Y-DNA testing, but still the projects portion of Family Tree DNA does allow some collaboration, but very minimal and, not quite in the way that I would like. Now, Living DNA, I'm not 100% sure about theirs, and they're going to be one of the websites that I'm probably going to end up playing around with a little bit over the next few weeks as I kind of write this out. But we'll have to see how they are. But from my understanding, the last I remember looking, it was basically just you have to get the login info, username and password. So that I think is really, really important. Ancestry is definitely going to win that one. MyHeritage has done a lot over the past year or so to roll out features that allow more collaborative work. So, you can invite people, you've been able to invite people to your family trees on MyHeritage, but they now have it where you can basically invite people to collaborate on your, DNA profiles. So I haven't done much of that yet on MyHeritage, so I need to do some of that, but yeah, so that's going to be important. DJ's Variety Channel, I saw this. Do you do any public record searching if possible if you have a match that doesn't respond or have a viewable tree? Oh yeah, I mean that is something that is a technique unto itself that genetic genealogists should learn, most especially if you plan on doing adoptee research, or even more if you want to become an investigative genetic genealogist. This is a major part of being able to do that. Because when it comes down to genetic genealogy, almost every single person has matches where you're not going to be able to get easy information. They're not going to have the family tree. They're not going to have surnames listed, or, the different websites present stuff differently. So depending on each website, you might have more. If you have, like, 23andMe is probably one of the worst when it comes to this, in the sense that if you have a match on 23andMe that anonymizes their name to initials, and they give nothing in the the family information input section, then you're basically stuck looking at who are your shared matches with this person, and then trying to figure out if those initials match up with someone you already know in the tree. But that's not helpful in the sense of what we truly want from DNA matches is that we want to be able to find people we don't know and then find a whole new branch of the tree because of that. So 23andMe makes it terrible, but then you have sites like Family Tree DNA where they give you the email. Like every single match that you have on Family Tree DNA, you will be able to see that person's email address. And even if they're not responding to emails at that email address, and they put no, they use initials and they don't have a family tree, and that, that's all you're stuck with is basically initials and an email. Well, a lot of people use the same username in different places. So, maybe it's some @Gmail sort of account. Well, then look up that username just by Google, especially the rarer it is, kind of like with, names. If you have a username that seems really unique, it might be very easy to figure out that person on other platforms because they might use it on Twitter or Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook or, YouTube or whatever. I mean, I've found so many people just by using that. And then you can also use that even better on Ancestry. A lot of people don't realize that Ancestry has a member search function. Go on Ancestry, go to the search function, go down at the bottom of the column that pops up is member search, and go in there and you can search by name. You can search by username because some people use usernames on Ancestry. So you can do that. And I've found tons of family trees that way because, people will test on, Family Tree DNA or some other place, whatever, but still build their tree on Ancestry. And then you go into Ancestry and you see that that's where their tree is. So that is a skill to itself. There's also, that's not always going to help turn everything up necessarily. Maybe it will only let you take a small step forward. But even then, there's, further steps like going to Been Verified or Spokio, using the white pages, utilizing, obituaries, and, build it, kind of doing a fan research sort of thing with different people that pop up. Like, if I do a Been Verified search for someone because I have their name and I'm not finding much on them, but Been Verified says, well, here's a list of people we think might be their relatives. Well, then I start looking into those people and see, can I find anything like, half the time I'll be able to find one of those people on Facebook, and you just look at their friends list and you see, oh yeah, here's the names of all the other people I'm expecting. This must be them. And then you might be able to find that person in there. So there's a whole lot of stuff in terms of just that technique. So yeah. Yeah, definitely social media. Social media is huge. So, okay. So we've talked about size of database. We've talked about collaborative capabilities. Now let's talk about transfer upload available. And I think we already all know the only two websites that don't allow uploads are Ancestry and 23andMe. MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, Living DNA, they all allow uploads. And whether or not we include other DNA tests, I think we'll get to that in a bit. Although obviously, if anyone has any opinions about any of that, put them in chat. But with this, I just figured, maybe just 5 points. I thought about possibly doing it at a higher scale too, maybe 10 points. And I know that the way Family History Fanatics did it, they did it based on whether or not there was a cost associated with it. So like Living DNA, it's free to upload. GEDmatch is free to upload, although obviously I'm not going to include that in this list because they don't sell DNA tests. But then Family Tree DNA and MyHeritage, I don't know the exact details with each one, but basically you can upload to those for free, but you have limited access to stuff. And so, like, if I remember correctly, Family Tree DNA, it's just free to upload. You have to pay to access the like My Origins and some of the stuff that honestly isn't that genealogically helpful. I don't know if they've changed that. It's been a while since I've uploaded a DNA test to Family Tree DNA. I guess actually the last DNA test I uploaded to Family Tree DNA would have been Max Miller's parents. So that would have been last year, I guess, and that was just free. So yeah, I mean, unless they have some sort of IP address thing that they're tracking me and they're like, let's make everything for Jared free. I'm guessing it's free for everybody else too, unless they've changed since then. But there are costs to that. And then with MyHeritage, they do a lot of like specials throughout the year where it'll be like, if you upload in the next 2 weeks, you get free access to these tools forever. And so I don't know, that might be a good one. Yeah, comment in the chat, everybody. Let me know, because I see some of you mentioning your experience. MyHeritage and FTDNA don't allow uploads from Living DNA. Interesting. That is something I didn't know. I honestly know very few people who've actually ordered a DNA test through Living DNA. And I don't know if any of them have ever tried to upload to FTDNA or MyHeritage, because if they were testing on Living DNA, they probably have already tested or have uploaded to MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA. Yeah, so interesting. All right. Yeah, and then Lori, I tested with the Ancestry and then uploaded to FTDNA. Which honestly, that's kind of like the best route, in my opinion, is testing with Ancestry and then uploading to the other websites. It used to be, I would say, Ancestry and or 23andMe. Now I say either Ancestry, or if you can do both, then Ancestry and 23andMe. Now, obviously, getting into 23andMe is, a good thing in terms of you want the widest database possible. You want the most matches to match against, and the match that you might be looking for that might uncover the big secret in your family tree, or the big, branch reveal where all of a sudden you're able to extend it a whole bunch. That match is in 23andMe and tested nowhere else. You have to be in 23andMe to get that. And so it's kind of like the, casting the widest net possible idea. So, that's kind of the way I like to put it is, if your budget allows both Ancestry and 23andMe, do both of them. Then you can upload to the other websites. But if you can only do one of them, Ancestry is the way to go. So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking for transfer upload is 5 points. And by the way, I should say, if anyone thinks that I should give more points or less points or do it in a different way, let me know. But I just, while I do think the upload stuff is important, I think, the way that I'm looking at this is more of, which are the best DNA tests for genealogy. Whether or not I put that in the title, I don't know. We'll have to see, because unfortunately with YouTube, as soon as you put the word genealogy into the title, there's I think people that just aren't in a genealogy see that and they're like, I don't care. You always have to leave it DNA test, and it's got to be all clickbaity and stuff. So I mean, I guess that's not terribly clickbaity, but either way. All right, so the most important thing that I'm going to be measuring everything by is the advanced DNA tools. And this is something where I've kind of gone back and forth on how to do it, whether or not I should split it up into different categories or not, because each website does have certain things that do help in different ways. And then the other stuff is that I also want to include uniqueness, because there's certain things that are kind of unique about each site that I don't know if I would necessarily put under advanced DNA tools. So, a big one would be that I kind of thought of for this category to be in place anyway, was because family tree DNA has Y-DNA testing and mitochondrial DNA testing. And none of the other sites allow that for DNA matching. Now, you do have sites like 23andMe, which give you a generalized haplogroup, but that's not the same as DNA matching. So that's kind of one of the things that I was thinking with uniqueness. And then I kind of had to try to think of, I'll have to think of what stuff might be with the other ones that kind of fall out of the other categories. So I don't know. We'll have to see how I do that. But anyway, the main thing I'm thinking is, the advanced DNA tools, that's the most important part. Because I think that's the part that, how easy do they make it for us to be able to identify the families? So, DNA tools being stuff like, MyHeritage has the auto cluster. They have a chromosome browser. That's going to be a big one. Which DNA, now I was thinking maybe should I do chromosome browser as its own category? Just do they have it or do they not? And I was also thinking, maybe do I just, I guess let me write it. Yeah. But so, okay. So chromosome browser, auto cluster, which is really just MyHeritage. The shared match comparison, that's kind of a big thing. For a long time, MyHeritage and 23andMe were the only ones that allowed advanced shared match comparisons, basically meaning you look at a DNA match of yours, then you look at the matches that both of you share. Well, MyHeritage and 23andMe were the only sites that would tell you how much you match that match and how much your shared match also matches that match. Ancestry just rolled out a feature like that recently, but that is behind a further paywall, which we'll talk about that stuff in a bit. But yeah, so that's one thing. I do see a lot of comments coming in, so I'm gonna see what some people say. Okay. DJ's Variety Channel, are you going to factor in the family tree building softwares and record subscriptions, or just what comes directly from the DNA portion? I'm glad you said that, because I think that was one of the things I was thinking of in terms of uniqueness. Basically, like, MyHeritage and Ancestry have the family tree and documentation component to it, so that is kind of a unique thing to it in that sense. So I think that's where I would include that sort of stuff, just in kind of the uniqueness of what they bring to the table. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Let's see. I see a lot of comments about living DNA. Another big uniqueness plus for FTDNA is that they store the sample free for any potential future additional testing. This is a huge positive, especially for testing elderly relatives. Yeah, that is really good. I know a lot of people were getting a ton of those MyHeritage messages about, do you want to pay to have your sample stored in the biobank or whatever, which I think it's way past the point where you can do that. So if you haven't done it, I think your samples are going to be destroyed. But yeah, for family tree DNA, that's an interesting one. Anna, would you include how to go about creating an Excel sheet of DNA matches or something similar if someone doesn't want to do GEDmatch? Well, I don't know what you quite mean. Like, I mean, I know like creating an Excel sheet of DNA matches, but I don't know why you would need that if you don't want to do GEDmatch. So I'll keep an eye out for something to clarify. I'm not quite getting. Would you include how to go about creating an Excel sheet of DNA matches or something similar if someone doesn't want to do GEDmatch? Huh. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know. I'll keep an eye out. I didn't fully understand. Adam Mura is 50 points for chromosome browser. Yeah, which means Ancestry would not be winning. Antonio, you also should factor in costs. Basic test for MyHeritage is cheap, but for messaging they want to pay. Last time I checked, this reminds me of Ryanair. So yeah, so that's right what we were about to get into next. So yeah, I think we've covered advanced DNA tool. You know, we've all got the general idea, you know, what tools do they have that allow us to help with that, you know. So I guess some other stuff that I would include is like through lines for my for Ancestry, or the theory of family relativity for my heritage, you know, stuff like that. And then like, you know, yeah, stuff like that's what would encompass it. Now, whether or not I break these into separate categories, that's the question. But now in terms of costs, just like what Antonio mentioned, I wanted to split that into two different categories. And how much I was going to give them, I wasn't sure. When I started doing the point scale, I was aiming for 100 points, you know, so I don't know if I still have that. What is that? 60? Yeah, it's still 100 points. So I think that's kind of why I broke it up. But basically, I wanted it, what's the initial DNA cost? And then what are the continuing costs? So with initial DNA costs, I honestly don't know how much variability there's going to be, because for one, all of the DNA tests seem to go on sale for really cheap around the holidays. Granted, I want to say MyHeritage and maybe Ancestry usually seem to be the cheapest. I think usually bottoming me out around like 30 or 40 bucks. I don't know how, I'll have to see how much all the DNA tests really cost, but I mean, basically most of them cost off sale around $100, unless you do the health ones, which I think cost for more, but yeah. So that's going to be an interesting one, but I think in all honesty, it's going to be very, very close for most of them. Where it really comes down to is the continuing costs. So for that, family tree DNA is going to get 10 points because there are no continuing costs. You buy a DNA test through family tree DNA, and then you don't have to pay for anything to keep accessing stuff. Unless they've changed something that I haven't noticed at all. But then like you've got other sites like, you know, Ancestry and MyHeritage, where they're probably not going to get that many points here because, you know, you have to have a membership with them to be able to access a lot of this stuff. Basically, continuing costs to be able to access anything I mention over here. You know, whether it's the collaborative capabilities, the transfer upload's not going to matter, but, you know, the advanced tools, you know, if they have advanced tools, but you have to pay to access them, that matters. So, you know, like 23andMe is going to be affected by their 23andMe Plus membership thing. Granted, that probably won't be a ton. So that's going to be a big factor into it. So I wasn't sure if, you know, part of me was thinking like I would do 5 and 15 points because I felt like continuing costs mattered more than initial cost. But then I wasn't quite sure. So yeah. Yeah, MyHeritage is for sale forever. Yeah, a lot of them are on the basically you just have to wait for any holiday and they're going to be on sale. Yeah, I was thinking to test because I realized that the quality of the test results I have from uploads is low. Yeah, that I will say that is one benefit to doing a DNA test through a company, even if they have upload capabilities, is that you're not going to get the best results with a DNA profile from a different website. And this is because each website largely has, I guess I'll just write in here even though. Yeah. So each website largely has about 700,000 SNPs. But then, each website, while they largely have the same amount of SNPs, they don't have all the same SNPs. So you do, Ancestry, and 100,000 of the SNPs you do at Ancestry, they don't test at 23andMe. And 70,000 of them, they don't test at MyHeritage. And 50,000 of them, they don't test at Living DNA or whatever. And then even more, when you look at the other sites, we're looking at just Ancestry now. Well, you look at the other sites, and even though they're not testing 100,000 SNPs that, Ancestry's testing, they are testing a different 50,000 SNPs that Ancestry wasn't testing. And so it's not just the 100, it's like a big difference. And so that's, going to make a difference in terms of what the results say. Now, in my experience, it's not a huge difference, but I haven't honestly done that much in terms of seeing those types of results. I've seen it a couple of times, basically uploading to MyHeritage and then testing, having that person test through MyHeritage and seeing the differences there. So that actually Mr. Beat did that, which was really funny because I think Mr. Beat did a sponsorship with MyHeritage because they basically got everybody to sponsor a video. And if I remember correctly, he messaged me when he did that because his results were like, you came up, and then he went and looked and he was like, your identical twin, Mr. Beat, managed by Jarrett Ross. So he messaged me. He goes, oh, I see you already had my DNA and MyHeritage. I was like, yeah, what'd you think I was doing? But then you can see the slight differences in the admixture and the matching. And so, it could make a major difference because maybe the spots where, the SNPs that they aren't testing, that's just happens to be the spot where you would have matched this specific person. So that is one reason why people might want to test at a website that already allows uploads. Now, if you have a limited budget, it's not going to be that big of a difference. But if budget makes no difference for you, it's probably the better route to go just because you're going to get the best results that you can get from that website. I didn't really need to write out 700,000 SNPs. I don't know why I thought I did. I thought I was going to write out more stuff, but then I don't know. Berivar, include downloadability of match results. I think only MyHeritage and 23andMe stopped this. Yeah, maybe I will include that. I thought MyHeritage picked that back up. I think they only stopped it for a bit because they stopped a lot of stuff for a bit, but then they brought it back. And then I think 23andMe brought it back too. I could be wrong. If anyone else knows, comment below. But I thought both of them brought it back. So I'll have to see. But that would make a difference. Bryce, I keep seeing you post this same question. What is % chance for me getting Inuit from MyHeritage? I don't know. That's that's so out of left field. I don't know. It depends on your ancestry, depends on other stuff. That's certainly not something that I would innately know just from experience or anything. I'd have to research a whole bunch of stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Test with MyHeritage and see if you get Inuit. DJ's Variety. I think 15.5 is better than 10.10. Yeah, I think so too. I think it makes a lot more sense because the initial DNA cost, like I said before, really is not that big of a variability between the tests. And the continuing costs really do matter more. Plus, that probably gives a better range for continuing costs in the sense that, I feel like MyHeritage and Ancestry are probably going to get the least points because they have the most continuing costs. Ancestry is probably not going to get much at all, especially in that you have to pay for a membership. And then they have even more stuff, most especially the shared match comparison stuff, behind the secondary paywall. So it's just enough. But yeah, so that makes sense. That I think that works best. And then, yeah, so then last is that uniqueness, which I feel like we've already kind of talked about. Just, what are the things about this site that make it unique? So, family tree DNA, it's, the Y DNA testing, the mitochondrial DNA testing, also the X chromosome factor, which I'm not sure. I'll have to look and see. Is family tree DNA might be the only one that gives you the X chromosome data. At least for matching. The only other one I know is, I think, GEDmatch. Jackie, good afternoon. Thank you for joining. Totus Valzer. Is it true that MyHeritage and Genie will permanently delete all Russian accounts? MyHeritage put out a press release saying that they are going to be doing that. I don't know if it's going to apply to Genie. If it does apply to Genie, that's going to be a very different animal than with MyHeritage, because MyHeritage, everything is within singular accounts. So basically, if they have an account and they're based in Russia, that everything tied to that account deleted. Whereas with Genie, it's collaborative. So they might have done collaborative stuff. Russian users have done collaborative stuff on profiles that non-Russian users were doing stuff on, or they, a lot of merging and things like that. And so if it were to happen on Genie, I don't know to what extent it would be, because I doubt it would be they would delete all of the work that those people put into it. I would imagine it would be much more of like a, that user profile, and I don't know. So I actually should ask Genie about that. I looked through a lot of the different stuff I saw written about what was going on with the Russian profiles, and I didn't see anything about it including Genie, but Genie is a MyHeritage company, and so I would think it might be affected, but I just don't know. James Burton just logged into 23andMe, and there is an option to download the raw data. Have to confirm your birthday first. Okay, so they did bring it back, and that's what I thought. So every single one of the sites that I'm thinking of for this, yeah. Yeah, FTDNA also provides the basic Y-DNA haplogroup free for ATDNA male testers. That's right. I forgot. That's like a recent thing. I forgot when they rolled that out. Yeah, summer 2023, introducing Y-DNA haplogroups for Family Finder customers. So yeah, very cool. Laverne Clark, any African American DNA test that you have heard of? The only one that I've heard of is unfortunately one that I would not recommend. And that's one that I've talked about a bit before. I usually bring up an article by a really great genetic genealogist, Shannon Christmas. And it was actually a site that was used by Henry Louis Gates Jr. for a lot of his programs, including African American Lives. But eventually he stopped using it because he realized that the data, the information they were giving was not quite up to snuff necessarily. It wasn't like a scam, but it's not testing as much DNA as it should for the results that they're giving. So yeah, I need to go on here and let's see. Sorry, I've got a thing on my. How do I do that? For anyone who's watching on Twitch, which I think is only one person, I just had like a botted comment, just trying to figure out how to delete it. Oh, there we go. Maybe. No. Ah. All right. I don't know how to do it. Let's see. Block. There we go. And there we go. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm not very used to Twitch, and so wanted to make sure I got that out there. So, okay. So I was bringing up this site. Oh gosh, I can't find it. Basically, Shannon Christmas wrote this article about the reasons why you should avoid that DNA test. So I'm not even going to mention it by name, but basically, yeah, there's no tests that I know of that are really geared specifically towards that have any sort of advanced use that these other tests would have. So there was a video compilation, or not a compilation, a video collaboration I did between myself, Useful Charts, and Jabari Walker of the channel From Nothing, where basically Matt Baker of Useful Charts had Jabari tested a bunch of different websites. And then I did a YouTuber Family Tree series episode, and there'll be more episodes on Jabari in the future as well, talking about his ancestry and specifically his link to the Gullah Geechee people in Liberty County, Georgia. And Matt Baker's video was about what's the best DNA test for African-American testing. And in my opinion, I think that the same tests that are the best for most people, 23andMe, Ancestry, Family Tree DNA, Living DNA, MyHeritage, those are the ones that are the best. And you just never know what DNA match is going to be in what database. But beyond these, there's nothing that I really know of that's like this is the best one for African-American DNA testing. There are some population groups where I might like guide them towards a specific one. So, if you have Brazilian ancestry, or if you have Eastern European ancestry, even especially recent migrations, MyHeritage is the best because they have a lot of testers in their databases from both South America, especially Brazil, as well as a lot of people from Eastern Europe. So for me, I see a ton of people in my DNA matches, both in South America and Eastern Europe, because that's a lot of places where a lot of Jews ended up going. So yeah. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Sorry, just checking. Oh, hey, we have something good going on Twitch. Illyrian, good to have you. Thank you for joining. I am having a good night and hope you are as well. Doesn't look like it's snowing yet. Just check and see if it is. DJ, well, Ancestry MyHeritage would be punished for having records and such in the continuing costs category, while FTDNA will get all the points in said category without having these features at all. Well, no, I wouldn't punish them for that. And in fact, they would get points in the uniqueness for having the records and all of that. So the continuing costs don't, if they had a membership for just the records, but you still had full access to all of your DNA advanced tools without that membership, then I wouldn't count that as a continuing cost, because I'm thinking specifically, what are the continuing costs for the DNA test to access any of this stuff in terms of the advanced DNA tools or the collaborative capabilities, or, that's really it. So, with Ancestry MyHeritage, what they're really being punished for, in a sense, in that category is the fact that, they're putting those tools behind a paywall. If you don't pay for an Ancestry membership, then you can't access through lines and you can't see a lot of, I was going to say none of this is an Ancestry, but like they put a lot of stuff behind the paywall where if you're not paying for the membership, you're not going to be able to see it. You're not going to be able to see your matches. If your match has a family tree, you have a very limited view of their family tree. Whereas Family Tree DNA, you see a match's family tree, You see the whole thing. And then, in terms of those records and stuff, that's where they get the points and the uniqueness. So, it is an interesting point. Like I hope this never comes about, because I imagine it'd be a way for them to charge more overall. But, I wouldn't be surprised if sites like Ancestry and or MyHeritage started rolling out memberships where it's a records only membership, or a DNA only membership, or a records and DNA membership, or something like that, I know MyHeritage at the Last Reads Tech talked about doing some massive sort of membership that like covered MyHeritage and Genie and then like a whole bunch of other stuff, but I don't think they've rolled anything out yet. Okay. Totus Valzer for Genie, it would be a huge data loss. Yeah, in terms of the getting, if they delete everything that any Russian put into Genie, it'll be a huge data loss. And honestly, on MyHeritage, it's already going to be a huge data loss, because I do have a lot of connections to people in Eastern Europe, and Russia's a major part of Eastern Europe. So I see a lot of people from Russia who are on MyHeritage that have done parts of trees I'm connected to or researching, and so all of that's going to be gone. So it's definitely a huge data loss. It's very, very unfortunate. So hopefully, if this war will, conclude and things can go back to, I say normal, but, go back to non-war, I guess, a more peaceful time, maybe, I don't know. It's sad. It's sad. Irene, late, but made it from snowy NC. Is it snowing where you're at? I don't think it's snowing where I am yet. So I don't know. Interesting. John Big Booty, does MyHeritage have a suspected glitch in the ethnicity estimate that gives an Inuit result? I don't know. I think I've seen people talk about that. I think I've seen a lot of people talk about different glitches technically in MyHeritage, where they see like a lot of people getting this sort of a reading that is surprising. And that might be one of them, but I don't know offhand. So maybe. Jackie Thomas, any advice for Caribbean genealogy? Well, I'm not 100% sure if I have any really direct advice, because it's going to vary depending on where in the Caribbean you're looking. I've done a good amount of research for Jamaica, and that was all websites geared towards Jamaican research or connecting with researchers who specialize in Jamaica, especially with the Caribbean, all the islands, they're very isolated. So it basically comes down to each island. So, the other thing too is, what do you include in terms of like all around, all over the Caribbean, as well as, some of the islands off of South America and stuff like that. So, like the research I've done in Curacao, another island, which I get, is Curacao South America or the Caribbean? I don't know, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. But basically, with Curacao, those records are just in Curacao and the Netherlands. A lot of them in Amsterdam, actually. So, I think it's going to vary in that sense. So it probably actually relies on, one, the country itself or the island itself or whatever. And then two, was there some sort of a, what I don't know what the proper term would be, but basically a nation that was like, is that, like Curaçao's Dutch. I can't think of any other. There's a lot of French ones in there, and all that. So yeah, that's really the advice. Is it just comes down to, you got to look at and see what's available for that specific spot. Rob, evening all. Rob, thank you for joining. Good to have you. Let's see. Ancestry put all trees behind a paywall. Even if people want it public, I deleted my tree there for that reason. Yeah. Ancestry has been doing a lot to put stuff behind a paywall. So that's probably why they're going to get hit the hardest on continuing costs. Granted, the focus on continuing costs here is just in relation to the DNA test. Yeah, PZ, I'll lose my Russian matches on MyHeritage. On Living DNA, Russia is in my top 5 countries when it comes to matches. Interesting. I didn't realize that there was a large contingency of people on living DNA. I don't know why I said contingency. It's a large, group of people. But yeah, interesting. I'll need to check my living DNA results. I check it so little because every time I check it, it's like the same top matches that are all super distant, nothing serious matches. Yeah. Okay, so I think the last part we're going to get into, and then we'll probably end this soon, is basically what to actually talk about in the video. One thing I thought about doing was putting in unrated mentions. So basically just kind of like, that would be stuff like, GEDmatch and, the whole genome sequence tests, Nebula and Dante. Granted, Dante I don't have experience with. I have experience with Nebula. Then maybe stuff like, the 23 Mufong and, Weegene, Genera, which these are all tests that I know about, but, I don't have experience with. So I don't know. I thought about maybe I should do that or not, but I don't know if that really adds much to the video. I thought it does in some ways, but then it kind of doesn't in other ways. So I don't know. But these are the ones that I definitely will be ranking. Now I basically put them in alphabetical order. So that's the ordering here. Nothing super serious. But yeah, I mean, 23andMe, Ancestry, Family Tree DNA, Living DNA, MyHeritage. So, I don't think I'm going to include any others, but, I don't know. Maybe there's something that's just slipping my mind or something like that. Or, yeah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I'd be curious to hear what you all think. But I do see Rob Curacao should be available on VVOSV or will be at some point. Suriname is on VVOSV and in the site of the National Archive. Yeah, well, and also with both Curacao and Suriname, for the Jewish communities, there's a ton of records within the inventory of 334 in the Amsterdam archives for the Jewish community of Amsterdam, the Portuguesa Israelische Gemeente. Did I say that right? That's probably one of the best. That's probably one of the best pronunciations I've ever had of that. Portuguesa Israelische. It's like Israeli. Because it's always the like the CHs that throw me off. I always have to think of that stuff. But yeah, Portuguesa Israeli Gemeente. Yeah. All right. DJ's Variety Channel. Circle DNA could be an underrated mention. Yeah, I guess, yeah. Circle DNA is one I barely ever talk about. But, well, I guess, I don't know. It really comes down, do they do DNA matches? Because, honestly, if they don't do DNA matches, then it's like, I don't even feel like mentioning them as an unrated mention because I have no experience with them and they have no matches. I feel like the unrated mentions are best in terms of that they only, there's only like one thing that they don't fit. You can actually order the DNA test. It includes DNA matching and I have experience with it. In terms of GEDmatch, you just can't order a DNA test, but it includes DNA matching and I have experience with it. Whole genome sequencing Nebula, the only thing is they don't have the matching. In terms of Dante, that's why I'm not sure if I should include it because they don't have matching and I don't have experience with it. Or at least I don't think they have matching. If anyone knows for sure, let me know in the comments. But then in terms of 23 Mafong, Weegene, and Genera, I have to find out which ones have matching. And I know one or two of them do. Like, I'm pretty sure Genera does. And I'm pretty sure one of these two does. But if I remember correctly, it was like whichever one does have DNA matching, you had to actually access it through their Chinese-only side of the website. You couldn't do it through their English side of the website. Granted, I think you could probably do Google Translate to get by. But yeah, so that one, those ones are like, I don't know, we'll have to see. So, but that was kind of what I was thinking was, unrated mentions would be they only match 2 out of the 3 instead of 3 out of 3. Eric, is 23andMe being sold? If so, should that be taken into consideration on this rating? I don't know if they're going to be sold. If it happens, I don't think anyone's really going to be that surprised. Hopefully, if they do sell it, it'll be to some entity that allows the matching database to stay up and available, because if they don't and 23andMe is just gone, I'll be really angry, and I think a lot of other people will be extremely angry. But unfortunately, when we all signed up and went through the terms of service and all that, that was kind of part of their terms of service, was that they can sell the database to somebody at some point. Whether or not I'm going to take this into the rating, maybe. I just don't know where or what, if I should create another category for it or something. But that's a possibility. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't, maybe, the uniqueness thing would be, well, I guess they're probably, 23andMe is probably not going to get much in terms of uniqueness, because the uniqueness is mostly like, especially I'm gearing it towards, I want things that are uniquely, part of the site, but helpful for genealogy. So, the fact that 23andMe has a ton of health and trait stuff isn't really helpful. Oh no, almost missed the live. Thanks for joining, Eve. Yeah, you caught it just at the tail end. I think I'm going to be ending it here pretty soon. I want to be sure to take my dogs out before it gets too dark, and especially because it's going to be snowing any minute. It's actually, I'm surprised it hasn't started snowing yet at all. Yeah, everyone should do GEDmatch. I highly agree. I also suggest for anyone that's plans to upload a GEDmatch, or if you've uploaded a GEDmatch, I highly suggest looking into the details about opting in for law enforcement. Someone who's worked in the investigative field, I see the power of that. And you can help identify unknown remains or violent perpetrators. So take a look into that if you haven't done that. Obviously, if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. Be informed before you consent. But yeah, I think people should inform themselves so that they can consent properly. Yeah, Adam, Nebula has a connection to YFO for additional payments, so it is a bit relevant for advanced genealogists. Yeah, I totally agree. But that's kind of why I was like, okay, for this site, or for this video, I really want to define it like this, as hitting all three categories. But that's also why I would like to mention it. It has that connection to YFO, but that's also, kind of outside of the autosomal SNP DNA test, which, even though I say best DNA test, and we all know that's a very wide range beyond autosomal SNP, that is the focus, is the autosomal SNP tests. So yeah, granted, whole genome sequencing still technically covers that, but yeah. So I definitely agree. It is very useful for advanced genealogists. It's where I tested to get my advanced Y DNA testing. I actually still need to do big Y. But yeah. PZ, ADintro, don't do matches. Your DNA portal, which actually has matches. I'm familiar with ADintro. I'm not familiar with your DNA portal. It's UK based. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them at all. Nebula Genomics has a blog about them from 2022. But yeah, interesting. I'll have to look into those, your DNA portal. But yeah, ADintro. ADintro. Yeah. Eve, number 1, Ancestry. Number 2, MyHeritage, is you can upload. Number 3, GEDmatch. Number 4, FTDNA. All my useful matches are on GEDmatch or MyHeritage anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I at this point, I don't even know where it's going to fall in line in terms of this stuff. There is my personal opinion about the tests and what I think are the best. But I think it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top using kind of this formula in a sense. But in terms of what you're talking about, your most useful matches, I did think about, should I include that in some way? And I've mentioned this already a couple of times, but Family History Fanatics videos about the best DNA test, the formula that Andy Lee was using, included that by looking at like the top 100 matches and seeing how many were quality matches. And while I think that can be a useful metric, it does worry me just in the sense that for me, it's going to be geared towards Jewish results. And so what comes out for me in terms of that is going to be different than other people. So I guess the only way I'd really actually be comfortable doing that, and I don't know, maybe I should do this. It's just kind of a lot of stuff to have to do, is basically surveying a bunch of people and telling a bunch of people, look at your top, 100 matches, and out of all of those 100 matches, how many fit any of these categories, sort of thing, Man, I don't know. Maybe I'll think about that. Maybe that would actually be a good way to do it. Because then it gets a good wide range. Because someone who tests on, Ancestry, if they come from a Jewish ancestry versus someone who was born in China and then came to the U.S. as a kid, they're going to have a very different result on Ancestry, especially what the quality matches are. And then of course it's going to vary by all sorts of population groups. So yeah. Let's see. ManUTD729. What is the best DNA test to find out what haplogroup my mom is descended from? Well, for one, there's a question of, are you looking at just your mom's maternal haplogroup, her paternal haplogroup, or are you asking about both? Because there's going to be different answers. If you're looking at your mom's maternal haplogroup, all you need to do is you can take a mitochondrial DNA test. Your mom can take a mitochondrial DNA test. The best DNA test to find out haplogroups is family tree DNA, but that's because they give you the most nuanced haplogroup and they give you matches. So, yeah, but in terms of who can actually test, for the maternal, it has to be your mom or your siblings or one of your mom's siblings or one of your mom's siblings. Mitochondrial DNA is inherited from the mother, passed down to each child. So, you have the same mitochondrial DNA as your mom and all of her siblings. And then you have or at least your mom and all of her siblings that have the same mom. So, yeah. But family tree DNA, that's really the best. In terms of the Y DNA, the Y chromosome, you would need to get either one of your mom's brothers to do a Y chromosome test, or you would need to get like your grandfather, your mom's dad, to do a DNA test, or just someone else who's a paternal member that would come, if your mom's maiden name was, Stuyvesant, just as a crazy name to say, then you'd need to find a male Stuyvesant who, if you trace up that person's paternal line, you would be able to trace a connection between your mom's paternal line, basically her father's 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 father, and that person's father's 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 father, etc. So yeah. Okay, it's 5:22. I'm just gonna go for a couple more minutes. I do see a few questions that I figured, why not? Jackie Thomas, what do you think about WikiTree? I think WikiTree is a great website. I am a big fan of collaborative trees, which WikiTree is. Collaborative trees just being a tree where everyone's working on the same tree. So if you create a family tree that has a profile that's already in that world tree that they have, you just merge it together, and now it's all connected and you're all working together. There's downsides to this, obviously, and then the three main collaborative trees all have their pros and cons. So those three being Genie, WikiTree, and Family Search. In my opinion, Genie and WikiTree are the best. Both of them kind of competing for the best spot, but personally I lean towards Genie just because of preferences. But WikiTree is really great. I think Family Search is much further away from both of them at a third place. And just because both the WikiTree and Genie, I think, have a lot of tools that combat a lot of the issues of a collaborative tree. Think of the issues you have on Wikipedia, where, anyone can edit, anyone can change stuff. And, while a lot of times things are caught when people do that, it's not always. And so, even when people aren't meaning to be malicious, they might put in wrong information and then it gets propagated, et cetera, et cetera. But with a collaborative tree, you can actually fix it. But yeah, so there's a lot of issues with collaborative trees, but I think it's a major pro because genealogy is a very collaborative thing. And the collaborative trees have allowed genealogists in the modern day to do so much more in learning about the connections of the world than ever before. And honestly, I think these are projects that, 10, 20 years I wouldn't be surprised if we found a lot of scientists utilizing to really understand more about, patterns in populations and things like that. And I know I've already seen some studies that have come out talking about these collaborative trees. WikiTree, I think, is a really good one. The thing that really stands out for them above the other collaborative trees is their sourcing and the way the profiles are set up, very much like a Wikipedia page. So it's kind of really easy to kind of be like, this person was a person, whereas other sites, it's much more genealogical. Like, you've got the name, the dates, the locations, and then there's usually about me sections and stuff, but it's not quite there. Whereas, I think a lot of people are used to Wikipedia articles and you're used to seeing ones about people. And then you have these, profiles like that. It also allows for really nice sourcing and easy ways for people to be able to see that sourcing. So I'm definitely a fan of WikiTree, a little bit more of a fan of Genie, but yeah, they're all good. Eric Sheridan, I think the best DNA testing company really depends on what your goals are. I definitely agree. But I think the biggest thing is that most of us doing genetic genealogy, the goal is to expand the family tree. And in that sense, the main goal with DNA testing is to find DNA matches that allow us to expand the tree. So it really comes down to that quality of the DNA matches and the quality of the tools to understand the DNA matches, which is why I would like to have the quality of DNA matches as part of it. It's just really hard to figure out how to do it. But I do like that idea of, getting a big survey of people to kind of say, and I don't know. I'll have to think about that as I write stuff out. If anyone has ideas on that, especially if you're in Discord, go to the Discord. I don't know if Charlie or Blackberry or Matt are in here, but if you are, post the Discord link. I don't know if any of them are in here. I don't think I saw them say hello today. And the last comment, Rasmus Beiskov Jensen. I uploaded my raw DNA from MyHeritage to FTDNA 5 months ago, but never got results. I've contacted them, but no response. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I wonder what's going on there. You might want to reach out to them again. If you reached out 5 months ago and never got a response, I wouldn't be surprised if got lost in an email somewhere. That just happens with some of these companies. So. All right. Well, I think with that, we're going to end the stream. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I guess everyone's kind of really on board with my thoughts on how I'm going to do this best DNA test video. So now you just have to keep your eyes out for how this comes out, and maybe keep your eyes out for that possible survey I was talking about. But you all have a wonderful rest of your Friday or rest of your weekend for those in Australia, those who are in the future tomorrow, and I guess a good amount of you in Europe, or some of you in the eastern parts of Europe, maybe eastern parts. I don't know, but good night, everybody. Thank you all for joining. I'll see you next time.